teaching them that AI is going to play a major role in their life, that we can't educate kids the way that we used to educate kids, that going forward, it's a whole different world. Welcome to Building Dreams Together, a podcast about connection, courage, and the daily actions that turn dreams into reality. Whether you're building your dream, rebuilding after a storm, or just looking for inspiration to take the next step, you're in the right place. This is Building Dreams Together. So, welcome, Melissa, to Building Dreams Together. And I know we've talked about trying to get on this podcast for a while. And one of the subjects that we were going to talk about, and I was going to talk about it later in the program, is AI. But because this morning I heard Melania Trump make these announcements, I don't know if you've heard what she's doing with AI.
No, I didn't hear.
So there are kids, there are kids in the foster care system who are turning 18 and are coming out of the system. And her goal is to inspire them and empower them into the future. How are they going to cope in the world, going outside of the foster care, being in a home, and what's going to prepare them for living life on their own at the age of 18. Right. And she's gotten together with all the major players, Meta and Google and Anthropic and whoever's coming up with the AI initiatives. And she's creating a program, and I think it was 16 states adopted it into their states to empower these kids that are coming out of the foster care system and teaching them that AI is going to play a major role in their life, that we can't educate kids the way that we used to educate kids, that going forward, it's a whole different world.
A whole different world.
And I know that you just finished writing a book about this. So I wanted to just bring it up front and get your perspective on what your thoughts are.
Well, this is a big topic, and there's so many layers to it. So I just heard about the day. I'm going to have to do some research on it. But we do. I mean, if you really think about humanity as a whole, how well have we evolved in wisdom? And the interesting thing about AI is that AI is a mirror and an amplifier. So when you look at these foster kids, and they've come from broken homes, they've gotten information of survival, but not how to thrive. And so you take that construct that they have in the mind and how they solve problems, and if they were to apply it to AI or be in charge of AI, what would come of that? And it could be productive or it could be destructive because they haven't been taught structures on how to form themselves mentally, emotionally, spiritually, physically, discernment. And really, that's just not a foster kid issue. That's actually a human issue today. How do we form ourselves in a way that becomes wise? And what's really interesting is that in all these eons of humanity, the level of intelligence that we have has gone, straight up the roof. But the level that we've emerged as wise as a collective has flatlined. And that is where we have a really big opportunity to change how we think about forming human beings. So I think Melania is on the right track, and we do have little pockets across the United States. I can't say the world, but I'm sure there is, where institutions are bringing AI into schools or into learning environments, and they're teaching kids to use it and then finding what they're good at, and then AI builds them through a curriculum. You can have a 4-year-old at an 8 or a 5th grader at a 7th grade level because they hone it to the child and what their natural capability of learning is. But the most important thing that needs to happen is that humanity, through wisdom, needs to learn how to be more human. And I know that sounds really crazy, but I can explain it to you later.
Well, yeah, when you say more human and yet you depending on AI to help make kids more human, which sounds counterintuitive, right? It
I
doesn't
know.
work well. And I had a conversation with someone this morning, actually, who's going to be a guest on another podcast. But the conversation that we had was somebody that he wants to introduce me to who's been working with AI for about 10 years now. So for a long time, early on, and did these test pilots on kids who were suffering from self-esteem, who it was really brought upon. And what made him think about it was there were so many kids who are committing suicide today. And when you
Mm-hmm.
have kids that are distraught and don't have the means to get to the right person, how can AI play a role? And he's developed a program, and I haven't seen it yet, and I have no idea what it's like, what it's about, but it's a program to help kids build, I guess, self-esteem and empowering them. And it will be interesting to see what he came up with, because it's coming to the States now. He did this test. It's been running in Mexico for, well, he started it out there. Like I said, 10 years ago, they started it, but it's developed so far now where the contact that I have here in the States, he introduced me to this program. I want to get your thoughts on what you think AI how can it play a role in children who are in distress?
Well, I think if the input is good in AI, then how AI can be really, really powerful is that it can take people and children through thought processes that help them process what they're feeling, what they're emotionally going through, and it can mirror back to them and be affirmative without judgment. A lot of times what happens is that parents and systems grow up and they have their own filters for what they think is right or wrong, and that can, be passed down from generation to generation or from system to system or institution to institution. So if an AI can help a child understand themselves and go through a process and mirror a positive way to work through a system and also direct them into a way that isn't helpful, and then give them that reflection back to them, like, this thought process is very clear, and then ask them another open question, it can help them go through a very systematic way of understanding themselves in relationship to the world around them. And that can be really positive because it's judgment free.
That's just what I was about to say. It comes with no judgment. AI comes with zero judgment, whereas talking to another individual, it's filtered through their own personal belief systems.
Absolutely.
And yeah, and that ties into the work that I'm doing over at Believe Become BU, and the Building Dreams Together idea, and the I Believe in Me program and life mapping program. It's teaching kids how to think for themselves, how to look at some of their belief systems, the things that aren't working for them, and transform them into beliefs that do work for them, and looking at things from different perspectives. So I think that was the connection that the two of us had. So
Absolutely.
yeah, so tying it into Building Dreams Together and this podcast and what we're about, what I wanted to ask you, the first question that I had for you and that I'm looking at is, what's been one of the most difficult moments in your life?
I think I can go back to I mean, I've had lots of hard moments. We all do. But I think a critical moment was I was a gymnast and I broke my back and I identified myself as a gymnast. And then when I broke my back and I couldn't be a gymnast anymore, I had to figure out as a young teenager how to move from athlete to just average person. And that identity shift caused a trickle of events where I ended up hitting a very deep depression, like dark and deep, where literally the psychologists and psychiatrists told my mom that I would never recover. And no kidding. They're like, she's just going to have to live with that.
Well, what did you have to tell yourself to get through it?
Honestly, it was a journey. I mean, they put me on medication. I tried to listen to Tony Robbins and all of that self-help thing, and it didn't really work until I was in and out of depression for almost, I don't know, a decade. But then I finally met a life coach, and I'd done everything else. And going back to AI, what was super powerful is that she reflected back to me and she said, you know, you're a very intuitive young lady, and what you see is true. And the reason you're depressed is because nobody taught you the skills to identify what your truth is and how the world you're witnessing is not in integrity. But I want you to know that you are in integrity, and let me help you get the life skills so that you can start distinguishing between what is integrity and what is an alignment and what is true and what is not true, and you don't take it personally. And that was the most freeing moment of my life, because at that time somebody had finally validated that I was clear and I didn't have the tools to own my clarity. That was huge.
So the daily talk, was there a daily, was there something that you had, like, what was the routine?
When she helped me understand, like, one question, is that true? What's true right now? So if I just spiral into a panic attack or an anxiety attack, I would say, what's true now? Well, what's true right now is I have a roof over my head. What's true now? I have my health. What's true now? My mom and dad love me. What's true now that I can do right now to make myself feel better? Well, I can get a glass of water. So instead of spiraling out into the future and freaking out, it was just to anchor it right into what's true now and what can I do right now to solve the problem in the immediate situation. And that was really helpful for me because I would spin out of control into the future that didn't exist. And as a young kid, that was a panic attack provoking.
Yeah, it reminds me of, like, the rise stack that we've created, that we have inside of it. To rise, we have to reflect. The R in rise, to reflect on what's real. The I is to inspect it, to interpret it, to inquire about it. What is really happening. S is for the separation of story to what's
Yeah.
real, and E to elevate. What's the next step that I can take that will move me forward in the right direction? So it's that same kind of thing. Is
Yep.
that was it a daily habit that you did, or was it something that you did like that?
Yeah, I mean, it was a lot of different daily habits. It was going back to like being more human, and this process is often when we're online or we listen to things through social media or television or radio, we're in a world that's not in front of us. Like, so we're hearing about all this stuff that's not ours. And what she taught me to do is being more human, is anchoring into the world that I'm living in, embodying the world that I'm living in. So it's simple things like going outside and observing that outside me right now is quiet. There's birds and bees and there's not any chaos. So it was anchoring the embodiment of recognizing the world that I was in versus the world that was in my mind or that I was, getting from outside. And that was that. It was, I mean, it's a long process because a lot of people don't live in the world that they're living in. They live in the world that's in their mind and coming from all over the place. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, I do, because we live in the world that we create in our own minds, our own realities. I talk about this all the time with two people, or three people, or 10 people can look at the same thing and they see a completely different picture. You know, we
Yeah.
we look at what the political arena that's happening today in the world, and how, our country, so many people see the same thing, the same truth is happening, with what's going on with Iran, for instance, or with what's going on, anywhere all over the world, here in the United States, and the divide that we're in. The same set of facts and circumstances are there, but boy, do we all see it differently through the filter and the lens that we choose to see
Yep.
things through.
And that's where humanity really comes in, because if I live in a small town in Oregon, and if I walk outside and I pay attention to my neighbors in the country, they have this habit where you drive by and they wave, even if they don't know you. And I walk into the store and everybody says, "Hey, Melissa, what's going on?" And there's a smile on everybody's face. And the conversations are very human. And so when I connect to that world that I'm living in, then I start looking at all of the divisiveness that is being shown, amplified through social media and through all the different things. Then I have to ask myself, is this amplification real? Or do they want me to make it feel like it's real? Because when I really talk to the people around me, they really are kind. They really do want to help. They really are present. And how can I keep on showing up in that way? And it changes a perspective slightly.
Thinking about myself, when you said human nature, people want to be kind to each other. People want to help each other. We want our neighbor to live well, for the most part, most people. Of course, there are bad actors all over the place, but for the most part, they do. They want people to live their dreams, which leads me to the next question. Are you living your dream right now?
Wow, that's another tough question. I'm a big dream person. And so I often get caught up in the difference between where I am and where my massive goal is. And I will be really hard on myself sometimes. So am I living the dream, the big dream? No. Am I walking towards it and stumbling really hard and falling flat on my face a lot of the time? Yes. Am I hard on myself for that? Absolutely. And that's, I'm trying to be a recovered perfectionist. I try to call myself an excellentist, but the perfectionism comes in. So I'm going to say, no, I'm not living my best dream, but am I walking towards it or stumbling towards it intentionally? Yes.
So that brings up an interesting conversation or reflection for me, or something I want to talk about, and which is to offer to you a different idea, an idea that, because my question was going to be, if you're not living your dream, why not? What's getting in the way, right?
Ah, okay.
And when I reflect back what I heard from you, the thing that's getting in my way of living my dream is me, is my criticalness of myself, how hard I am on myself, how perfect I think I need to be, how I think I should reach a certain status in life or a certain success measured by money or friends or whatever we measure it by. The thing that stops people from embracing their living their dream is themselves, because they're measuring it up against something. And what I want to offer is, I say to myself, yeah, I'm living my dream. Have I achieved a certain goal yet? Something I set out there? No. But I'm living my dream on the journey to accomplish that set out goal. That's outside there, but it's not inside here. inside here is I'm sitting here on a podcast that I never thought I'd be able to do and have a conversation that I'm putting out into the world that I never in a million years thought that I'd be able to do that. Until one day I just said, well, yeah, I can. Just do it. Just jump in, take the step, be courageous. I had a conversation with my grandson the other day, and I posted something about, my time with him. And I asked him, I said, would you want to be on a podcast with me? And no, 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 no. And the only reason why, after we had a back and forth a little bit, is he's too insecure. He's a little insecure yet. He's a little young, which is fine. I get it. But he's scared to put himself out there. What are people going to think of me? And I understand that. I lived my whole childhood like that.
Right.
So I totally get it. And most of my adulthood. So what I want to offer is a mindset shift of saying, well, I haven't accomplished this yet, but my dream is the journey. Maybe a shift in that.
The dream is the journey. And you know what? You're absolutely right. My mind can be very tough on myself. And I have to be really, I have to go through that what's true process a lot to bring me back to center, because after all this time, it's a hard habit to lose.
Yeah, you're not alone. You are not alone. Many people, most people are in that mindset. My question was, do you believe it's truly possible for people to live their dreams, or is it only something that few people achieve? And, well, now that we had this discussion, that question, do you think it's possible for people to believe? Yeah. Yeah, I think it is.
I think it is. But I think it's a different mindset. Like how I grew up was, you go to school and they test you and they figure out what you're bad at or what you're not so good at. And so they try to figure out what I wasn't good at my whole life or what was wrong. And I feel like in the modern day society, if we were trained, obviously, to correct bad habits, that's reasonable. But if we were trained to see what people are good at and reflect that back to them on a more regular basis, I feel like that would change a lot of people, because our environment also impacts us. I remember I had a 4th grade teacher who called my mom in, and I was freaked out. And she put down this construction paper with fire and elves on it, because I had written a poem about the fire. And Mrs. Staley was her name. And she told my mom that of all of the 4th graders that I had written one of the most beautiful, insightful descriptions of watching a fire burn, and that I was a writer. That was one person. But I went through my entire life thinking I was stupid because of my 3rd grade teacher. So it didn't matter.
The influences and the things that stick with us, the little things that stick with us, it's amazing, right?
Yep.
How it changes. And that's what, when you were just speaking, my mind went to, wow, how powerful would it be for someone to daily journal in an AI-driven way, where they can write something and get some reflections, some real, honest, good reflections, empowering reflections back from something, so that they can start their day with a positive thought. And what I've experimented with AI, going back to the AI thing, and kids and how it can help, I've experimented with putting in daily journal stuff and getting reflective information back that was empowering, and nothing ever came back negative. things came back, well, here's the truth. Here's what I'm hearing you say. Here's what they reflect back what I'm saying. And in a way, empowering me to take even sometimes negative thoughts and flipping it to some positive, empowering messages for me,
Absolutely. I mean,
affirmations. Yeah.
journaling has always been powerful, and I've been a journaler since I was like 10. But imagine what if you do learn to communicate and write and type and express what you're feeling and what you're observing. The really cool thing about AI is that over time, it can look at patterns and it can help you take those patterns and pull them apart and help you make a more informed decision, because you might be saying the world, you know, the sky is purple, the sky is purple, the sky is horrible, the sky is falling, and it might ask you critical questions so that you could get to the point where you could actually see a different perspective or reframe it. And that insight without being judged is it is so powerful.
If you could share one thing with people that helped you move closer to accomplishing your goals and your dreams, what would it be?
Trusting myself, learning to get closer to who I am, learning to recognize what I'm capable of, and knowing that I've built confidence over time and not waiting for other people to approve my actions.
How do we get somebody that's stuck, that's so scared, that's so on the fence, that doesn't trust themselves? What what shift is there? Something that we can say? And I don't know what the answer is. I wish I
Right.
really did. I can just do it for myself. I can just share for myself what it was. But so the one thing that helped you trust yourself, what did you have to take? What was the mindset shift?
I think it, like you said, it was a journey. And so I would start noticing things like, like I have a really strong sense of intuition that was sort of squashed when I was younger. Like, you're not perceiving that. And so I would question myself. And as I've gotten older, I'm like, I get an intuition and I note it and I write it down. And then I don't judge myself. Am I right or am I wrong? And then I'm like, you know what? I was actually dead right on that. I was dead right on that. And so instead of going outside, I start taking the little things and documenting and anchoring that my gut feeling was right and that I could see that and that I can do this. And so it was incremental. Did it happen overnight? No, it happened that going back to being more human is going back to really observing what's going on in my real world, and am I clear about what happened? And a lot of the time, more than not, I was. So the mind shift isn't how do I change this right now? It's what small thing can I anchor for myself and build upon that so I trust myself completely. And eventually, I know I'm confident. I know that I can change a tire. I know that I can trust my judgment because I've been testing myself against myself. I don't I don't need anything else.
Okay. I want to bring in other people now for a moment. Like in your life, in your journey to where you are and to on this journey of living your dream, who helped you along the way and how important were they?
Wow, who helped me along the way? Well, my parents have been instrumental in helping me along the way. Absolutely. They because I'm a deep thinker, because I have had depression and anxiety, they got me, into spaces that weren't necessarily conventional. They were willing to do unconventional things to get me out of the leap. And then sometimes it was just strangers who didn't have a judgment on me that helped. But I'd say the number one person that helped me the most was my life coach. Her name was Kathleen Spike when I met her at 2019 or 20. And she was the one who got away from diagnosing me with labels of anxiety and depressive and all PTSD. And she just helped me understand how to process myself and how to see the world clearly and in a loving way, in a non-judgmental way. And that I saw her for 3 years and I'm still friends with her today, but that anchoring changed my life dramatically.
The question maybe you already answered is, do you believe that it's necessary to have people, or is it easier to have people in your life that you can share your life with, rather than trying to do things alone? Like it's you need to bring people in.
You need to have people in. But I think the key thing is understanding who those people are. Because some people can seem like they're nice to you and they're on your side, but they're actually stabbing you in the back. And so understanding that discernment of like, who is nourishing me, who wants to me to succeed. And sometimes that person isn't always the easiest person to get along with. Maybe they're pushing you. Maybe you have a couple of arguments. Maybe it's not always comfortable, but at the core that they want you to live your dreams. And I think that's probably one of the biggest things is picking your circle and also eliminating people that don't help you get there or don't help you feel seen.
I get it. During my journey of life, my success in the business world has always been because of other people that I surrounded myself with. So it was not Jack that did it. It was the people that I chose in my circle, that I shared with, that I gave a vision to, and they helped me execute what I'm doing. Like yourself, we're working together. You're the guru, strategy architect, and multimedia, and helping me get my messages out there. It's the people that I surround myself with that I think contribute to the success that I've had in life. And it wasn't until I went for the inner work. That was on the outside. That was everything outside. But for the inner work in my head, it wasn't until I realized that I needed the certain coaching. There were influences in my life, and those influences were all the people I talk about inside the program. It was LifeSpring that I did when I was in my 20s. It was the Wayne Dyers of the world and the Tony Robbinses of the world and the Deepak Chopras and the Bob Proctors and all of those kinds of people that I brought in to help me here, to help me get to where I am today, even sitting, like I say, here on a podcast, sharing my life openly and just being out there and wanting to help other people, So it's the name of the podcast, Building Dreams Together, is about to accomplish the things that we want in life, to live a fulfilled life. When you share it with other people, life is more fulfilling. There was a letter that I wrote to my wife, and I talked about this in one of my programs or shows or podcasts or whatever, about a letter that I wrote to her when we were in our 20s. And it was a simple phrase of, thank you, and I love you so much, because what you do for me is you make my joys doubled and you cut my sorrows in half, because I'm sharing it with you. And, it's powerful. Yeah.
I feel like that's the message. Building dreams together is such an important thing. And a lot of our culture is like, do it on your own, be alone, separate from other people. I mean, they might say social media connection, but the truth is that people are getting more isolated from each other. And when you can have a common dream and a common uh connection with people, and they want you to lift and you lift other people, the momentum is so awesome. And I feel like that's what building dreams together and this program is about. It's not just coaching or learning a skill set. It's creating a community where everybody is trying to grow and grow the people around you. And that feeling is amazing. It's amazing.
Yeah, yeah, it is. And people resonate so much with this message that we're trying to get. This guy that I talked to this morning, who's a VP over at Chase, JP Morgan Chase, and he's now moving into a new role of a community involvement. And it just so happens that, he was my personal banker, but now he's moving into a different position. And I said, how appropriate is it that we had this conversation, and I spent a half hour taking him through the BBBY platform, the programs, and keeping my fingers crossed. I hope somehow we have a connection with them somewhere in the future. That would be cool. But we'll see how that goes. So before I ask the last question on the Building Dreams Together thing that I have for you, I want to talk a little bit about, if you're open to talking about it now, if you're ready to, about the book you wrote.
Well, it actually this book came out of nowhere. So I'm in marketing and branding, and I started writing what they call an ontology, which is essentially a map of meaning for business intelligence. And and right smack in the middle of it, my father had passed away. And when you lose somebody, you get profound. I think you understand that, like the
I
reflection.
totally, that, I understand that.
Yeah. And I started realizing that the book is called The Wisdom Gap. And what I started realizing is that we need to create a map of meaning for individuals and for cultures that's not all over the place, almost like a constitution that's like, what is fortifying for a human being? And how do we map that in an AI point of view? An AI point of view means, how do you get extremely clear? Because in how we communicate as humans, we can say the word freedom, for instance, and 10 people will give you a different definition of freedom. Or you could say love, and you will get different perceptions of love. Or you can say achievement, and you'll get different perceptions of what that is. Or you can say this person is stupid, or all the words, right? But what does that word mean? What's the context of it? When you see a meme, you see a meme. But then what's the context of the meme? And that meme could have a 50-year context in it if you were to look at it, but you're only seeing 3 seconds. And so the book addresses this idea of, how do we form human beings in the age of AI so that we double down on being human, that we double down on craft, that we double down on seeing what's good about a person, that we double down on I know this is going to sound crazy, but guess what? We're earthlings. We need to be outside. We need to use our senses to smell, touch, taste, to observe the real world around us. We need to learn things like cursive, or finger painting, or understanding that a bluebird isn't just a bluebird, that it has a migratory habit, to be more immersed in being human on the earth, and being immersed in developing our craft and mastery mentally, emotionally, physically, and spiritually, from a tangible point of view and not a theoretical point of view, and learning how to master being a human in an earth world, so that when the AI comes around, we're masters of our lives, and not just taking what's handed to us. And that's essentially what the book is. And it goes with the diagnosis, and then it comes with a map of meaning on the backside. And I've had a couple people read a few chapters. Both of them are parents. One is the parent of an 8-year-old, and one is the parents of a 10-year-old. I think they've only gotten for the first 3 chapters, but the impact of the parents was, wow.
I mean, from an eye-opening perspective, like I didn't think of things this way, and I didn't realize.
Like there's nothing wrong. I mean, learning the education system that we have today in the United States is really built on a model that was built in the 20th century, which is performative, right? It's about, achieving and putting people through. And the AI model is not performative. It's how do we create sovereign, healthy people who can think through themselves and who can get along with other people and be, I keep on going, deeply human, who can develop their craft, who can live their dreams, who can create community, and they can also recognize and they master themselves and the world around them so well, or whatever they like, a mastery of painting or writing or engineering. They do it because the mastery of it excites them. And now when they use AI, they can use it as a collaborator instead of just being a passive person gathering amplified information. And that's essentially what the book is about. And the limited feedback was, wow.
I love it. I can't wait to read it. You said you were going to share it with me, so I'm waiting.
I am going to.
I'd like to read it. So when do you anticipate this coming out?
The book launch will probably be in the end of June on Amazon. And I probably will do a special thing through Believe, Become, Be You on the launch of this book, and you and I can figure it out. But I feel like there's an alignment here with what the I Believe in Me Foundation and Believe, Become, Be You do. You guys are the first step of what my book reveals, and I look forward to figuring out what we're gonna do to get people in the pathway.
I look forward to it. So my last question for you, and always the last question for everyone, is building dreams together. When I say building dreams together, what does it mean to you? Those words.
It means that I know what my dream is and how I want to create it and how I want to show up and become a better person, so that I can surround myself and help other people and help them raise the ceiling on everybody's lives. It's when I think of building dreams together, it's switching it so that everybody can live their own renaissance.
With that, Melissa, I want to just say thank you very much for being on here, for being vulnerable, for sharing your story, for sharing, part of your life. And I know that we'll be doing more of these in the future, especially when your book comes out. Thanks for joining me today on Building Dreams Together. If today's conversation inspired you, like it, subscribe, and share it with someone you love. Let's keep building connection and possibility, one dream at a time. To learn more about our work and our programs, visit BelieveBecomeBeYou.com. Until the next time, keep believing, keep becoming, and let's keep building our dreams together.